Hey, what's up? Chris Sider here, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most interesting questions that I get all the time, and that's if you can make an ex fall in love with you. Now, I do want to say if you're a newbie, and by newbie I mean you're new to our website or our way of thinking or our YouTube channel or our podcast, if you're new and you're trying to get your ex back, the first place I would start would always be at our Ex Recovery Chances quiz. This is a really simple 2-minute quiz I put together designed to help you understand if you have a chance of getting your ex back or not. Basically, it asks you questions about your relationship, how you are as an individual, how your ex is as an individual, and then based on all of our experience and all of our scientific research, we put together kind of an advanced algorithm that will take your answers, spit them out, and give you an idea of realistically if this is worth your time or not. So if you want to take that quiz, it's really easy. If you're on YouTube, all you have to do is simply look in the description link below this video. Or if you're watching this from or listening to this from somewhere else, all you have to do is go to our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, and look in the navigation bar for the word quiz. Click on that, it will take you right to the quiz, and you can get started. All right, with that in mind, let's begin by talking about if you can make an ex fall in love with you.
So we're going to be tackling one of the most interesting philosophical questions that's come across my plate recently, and that question is it possible to make an ex fall in love with you? So let's just get right to it. Is it possible to make an ex fall in love with you? Well, in the strictest sense of the definition, no. I don't believe it is possible to make someone fall in love with you. Making someone do something implies that you're removing choice from the equation. And the last time I checked, I didn't know anyone with the superpower of mind control. Now, with that being said, I think there are certain things that you can do to influence them to want to fall in love with you. So that's actually what this video is going to be covering, or this podcast episode will be covering. I'm doing this so that you can actually dramatically improve the odds of them actually wanting to fall in love with you, but also kind of talking a little bit about the science of it. Because a lot of people don't realize there are scientific things that you can do that you maybe sort of aren't familiar with or don't really know a lot about to really make or influence someone to fall in love with you. So let's talk about some of those things right now. The first thing I want to do is this. I did a video on YouTube a few months ago where I talked about 11 factors that are really commonly linked to love. So if you haven't watched that video, my first recommendation to you would be to stop this video and go watch that. But if you're anything like me and you're probably just sitting there and listening to this or watching this and you're sitting there and you're hearing me say like, yeah, stop this episode and go check out this other one. You're probably going to be like, oh, okay, Chris, that's cool. I'm just going to sit here and listen to this. So what I've done is put together a really quick crash course version of what I talked about in that video. So here's sort of the gist of it. There are 11 factors that me and my team and scientists all around the world have linked to helping release the chemicals that create the feeling of love. And those 11 things are as follows. Number 1, similarities. You want to be very similar to your partner. Number 2, familiarities. You're not going to fall in love with someone unless you feel very familiar with them. Number 3, desirable characteristics. Number 4, reciprocation. Sometimes it's nice to feel loved and not just be the lover, if that makes any sense. Number 5, social influence. Sometimes outside forces can make or break love. Number 6, hey, I'm doing pretty good counting. Fulfilling needs. This is pretty straightforward. Number 7, environment. Not a lot of people look at environment, but it certainly plays a role. Just look at the TV show The Bachelor for an example there. Number 8, specific cues or particular features. Number 9, readiness. Number 10, alone time. And number 11, mystery. Now, I know I went really fast, and I do want to say, like I said, I've done an in-depth discussion on each of these 11 factors in multiple different webinars, podcast episodes, and that YouTube video I was just mentioning. Plus, hey, if you really want to like understand what these 11 things are, you could always just pause this and write it down. But I think it's important to understand those first before we get into some of the more advanced science-based tips. So there they are for you. Let's move on. The interesting thing that scientists, specifically a guy by the name of John Barr, found was that body temperature can really play a crucial role into helping someone fall in love or making someone have those strong feelings. And it's really interesting. Studies were done and they found that ideally you want to feel kind of warm around the other person. So let's say that you're taking your significant other out on a date. Let's just assume you're taking your ex out on a date and you want to take them to an ice cream parlor. Well, last time I checked, ice cream was very cold, and cold body temperature in particular, is not going to help your chances at all of making them feel warm and loving towards you. It will actually have the opposite effect. So what you want to do is, if you're picking a restaurant to go to, you don't want to go somewhere, I believe, that is so hot it's uncomfortable. You want to go somewhere warm and cozy. So try to actually pick places on your dates that have this element. And in my opinion, this is a very, very small aspect of a big picture. And I guess the one thing I want to reiterate here is that if you're looking to make someone or influence someone to fall in love with you, don't just expect to do one thing or one scientific strategy and expect them to get on their hands and knees and ask you to marry them. It doesn't work that way. In my opinion, it works kind of more like an arsenal. You're not going to get the goal. You're not going to get the success that you want by doing one thing. Instead, you're going to kind of get it by doing a lot of different things at once. And this is just one of those elements that you can work in. So that's body temperature. Let's move on to the next scientific thing that you can really pay attention to, and that's prolonged eye contact. When scientists have done studies, they actually found there's a correlation between how often that we look into someone's eyes or pay attention or look at someone and love. So they found specifically on average, usually when you're talking to a normal person, you're going to be spending about 30 to 50% of the time looking at them. You'll glance at them or look back, But when you're in love with someone, that significantly rises to the point of where you're looking at them 70% of the time. And you can actually take this a step deeper by having prolonged eye contact, where you're looking in your significant other's eyes for a long period of time. Now, what is long? What constitutes a long period of time? That's really up to the individual and the sort of individual characteristics that people like. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, after all. Some people will like it if you stare in their eyes for a minute straight. Some people can't stand it. I think you just have to kind of have this gut feeling and draw on your own experience, because this is actually one of the big advantages that you have, that you've already dated this person. You kind of have an idea of what they like and what they don't like. So if you want to spice up your dates, let's say you're on a date, for example, and you're sitting across from your ex, well, every once in a while, look directly into their eyes and prolong the eye contact, and it will help for sure. Let's move on to the next scientific thing that you can look at to influence your ex to want to fall in love with you, and that is the Benjamin Franklin effect. I got a very cool sort of looking, if you're on YouTube watching this, I got a really cool looking Benjamin Franklin dollar bill eye there. So what is the Benjamin Franklin effect? Well, put simply, contrary to popular belief, we believe as human beings that if you do a favor for someone, that person is likely to reciprocate the favor. But actually, that's not the case at all. What's more likely to happen is that if you do someone a favor, you're more likely to do that person a favor again and again and again. So what you're looking for with the Benjamin Franklin effect is to use this concept to your advantage. Ask your ex for a favor. Right? And if they do the favor for you, they're actually set up to actually want to do you another favor. And another example that I use, or another terminology or an analogy that I use when I'm talking to my clients, is make your ex jump through hoops and progressively increase the intensity of what those hoops are. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're trying to get your ex back, you finish your no contact period, everything seems to be going pretty well, and you decide that you want to try this Benjamin Franklin effect. You want to kind of get your ex to do you a favor. So you text your ex and say, hey, can I get a favor from you? And your ex says, sure, what is it? And then you say, I'm sort of like having trouble with my washing machine, and I'm a little scared to go to the public one because there's some creepy guys there. Do you think you can come with me and sort of help? And if they say yes, you say, thanks for doing me the favor or something. They've agreed to the favor. They've jumped through the hoop, if you will. That means when you ask them for another favor, they're more likely to do it again and again and again. Now, the interesting thing about the Benjamin Franklin effect that a lot of my peers will leave out is that it's a double-edged sword, right? So there's obviously this bit about favors, where if you do a favor for someone, you're more likely to do that favor for them again. But the double-edged sword of it is if someone treats you poorly, they're also more likely to treat you poorly again. So you have to be kind of look at it sort of from a third-person party perspective. You do not want to let them get away with treating you poorly, and what you really need to focus on is trying to get them to do the favor for you, right? Because if they get into the habit of treating you poorly and they keep treating you poorly, they're just going to continue that behavior again and again and again. That's not what you want. You want them to continuing the favor behavior, if that makes any sense. All right, let's move on to the next thing, and that is the good feelings versus bad feelings theory. So this is something that I'm kind of the brainchild of, and there has been some recent research backing my findings up. So what is the good feelings versus bad feelings theory? I've talked a lot about this in articles. I've mentioned it in a few podcast episodes. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it in YouTube videos. Hey, guess what? It's going to be kind of mentioned again right here. So what is the good feelings versus bad feelings theory? Well, in my opinion, people are going to be drawn to the things that make them feel good, and they're going to want to repel the things that make them feel bad. So the example I commonly use is you are drawn to things that taste good, right? This is like probably the most concrete example I can give you. You are drawn to ice cream, most likely cakes, anything with sugar in it, and it's addicting. Why? Because it feels good. And I'm sure there's some scientific, psychological process going on here that I'm not really technical enough to know the terminology for, but things that make you feel good, you're going to typically be drawn to them. But we don't really enjoy things that make us feel bad, right? Or specifically things that taste bad. So it's like vegetables, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, things like that. Things that are technically good for you from a standpoint of maybe diet. A lot of people fail on their diets. Why? Well, it's because oftentimes diets require you to eat food that doesn't taste good. So we have these memories of things that felt good and tasted good, and we're drawn towards that, and we want to get rid of the things that taste bad. The same principle applies when it comes to our feelings. We're going to be drawn to people who make us feel good or make us excited or have some element of mystery to them, and we're going to be really avoiding people that make us feel bad. Right? So what you want to do is make sure that every interaction that you have with your ex, they're coming out of that feeling good. They're coming out of that, if you're going to chart how they're feeling, the feeling that they're feeling will be charted on the good side and not the bad side. If that makes any sense. And let's move on to the final thing I want to talk about, and that's the deficit of presence. All right, so what the heck is that, the deficit of presence? In my opinion, this is arguably one of the most important and under-talked about things there is. So there was a research paper recently released called Playing Hard to Get, Manipulating One's Perceived Ability as a Mate. So what does that mean? Well, scientists, when they did multiple studies, found that the ideal way to make someone want to see you again, make someone love you, deeper, is to actually do everything that we just talked about in the list before this point. Obviously, the good feelings, bad feelings, all of that good stuff. But not sticking around so long to where you're wearing out your welcome. if that makes sense. There needs to be some aspect of a deficit of presence. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder. This is the scientific proof backing that statement up. So let's say the best example I can give you here to really drive this point home is you've got two couples. You've got couple A and couple B. Now, couple A spends all day together, right? All day, every day, 24/7, and they love each other, no doubt, but eventually it starts to wear, and both parties maybe start to get bored, or one party gets bored and the other's still not bored, and you end up coming into problems. And then you've got couple B. A couple B spends a lot of time together for sure. Not a lot is different between couple A and couple B and how they're interacting. The only difference is every once in a while, one of the members of couple B will just for a day do their own thing and leave their mate alone. The scientists have actually found that what couple B is doing is actually a better way of making someone fall in love with you. Again, absence makes the heart grow fonder. So if you haven't done any of these things to help make your ex fall in love with you again, I suggest you get off your hands and knees, or you stop sitting on your hands or twiddling your thumbs and actually start doing some of these things. Now, the one thing I want to say is that it's important to understand these are very broad strategies. In many cases, I'm teaching you these strategies out of context. They need to be done at the proper time. Timing is an important aspect of this entire process, assuming you want to make your ex fall in love with you again. So, if you want to learn about the proper timing and when you should be doing these strategies, go to our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, and I have multiple different frameworks there. Probably the best place to start is the actual Start Here page, which is really easy to find. You can look at the navigation bar and simply click on the little title that says Start Here. If you're on the phone and you go to our website, just click on the little hamburger menu. That's the three little lines. Click on that, and the Start Here sort of ability to click and get to that page is great, because that is really a page I designed for newbies, people who are new that don't really know what they're doing. And the other thing I want to say, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't be afraid to take our quiz and go to our website. All you have to do is simply look in the description of this video. Click on that link and take our quiz, and it will kind of get you started with that Start Here type mentality. So that's going to do it for today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.